welcome to Let's Talk Diz, a show that gives everything you need to know to help make your Disney vacation as magical as can be in just about 20 minutes. I'm your host, Jeff Coviello. With me each week is Disney Master Sandy from Easy Diz by Instant Impressions Travel Services. Sandy, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm great, and I'm super excited to talk about tonight's show because it's a brand new experience. It's one we've been waiting for forever. You are coming right off a property where, of course, as always, you're one of the first to experience it. Tonight, we are talking about Tiana's Bayou adventure.
I know, shocking. I actually was in Orlando twice in 1 week. And for listeners that don't know, yes, I am still based in New Jersey. Yes, I flew home Monday night and flew back on Thursday morning. But there's great things going on all over property right now that we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks, right off of coming from Lighthouse Point.
Well, and that's the biggest reason why you're the person that has to be on this show is because when things like this happen, you do go. And like you said, based in New Jersey, but might as well be right in Orlando because when things go, you're there, right? So let's talk about the most important part of it because we've had different things open up over the last couple of years. Disney obviously has changed the way that they've done some business inside of the parks. How do you ride this particular attraction? How do you get yourself ready for it?
You sit down in the log flume.
That's a given. We're familiar with that setup.
You know, I am going to start by saying that I attended an annual pass holder preview. It will open to the general public June 28th. So if you hear this, it's not available for you immediately. But we are going to get you set. And I think there's some interesting things about the question of how do you ride. We've gotten very used to Disney opening new rides and giving us that virtual queue, that free opportunity to reserve a space in line. We saw it with Rise of the Resistance. We saw it with Ratatouille. We saw it with Tron. We saw it with Guardians Galactic Rewind. It's a great thing for so many reasons. If you're like me, you don't want to stand in line for a long time. New rides have issues. They don't always flow perfectly like other rides. So there's that free virtual queue, 7 a.m. and again at 1 p.m. I will tell you the 1 p.m., unlike most rides where we say to you the 1 p.m. is easier to get, at the moment the 1 p.m. is harder to get.
Huh, okay. The
1 p.m. will get easier to get. My guess is probably mid-August to mid-September.
Okay.
The second way you can ride is with a Genie Plus reservation. So if you buy that bundle of rides in the Magic Kingdom for the day, make sure you grab this as your first ride.
Yeah. My
personal plan of attack, go for the virtual queue at 7 a.m. If you get it, awesome. If you don't get it and you're buying Genie, you might want to make this your first ride. I'm going to tell you that there's probably not going to be a lot of early ride time, so you might have to wait that whole 2-hour window. But what I can tell you is the Genie Plus on this is going to become unavailable
very quickly.
Under an hour is going to be my guess when it first opens.
Yeah. Not necessarily as quickly as losing the virtual queue, but very, very quickly.
Correct. And I think here's a telling sign for those of you that are traveling November, December, January. They have announced that they anticipate the virtual queue will go away this year, and it will go to Genie Plus and Standby.
For just this attraction or total?
Just this attraction.
Okay. That's an important distinction. I want to make sure we give that answer.
I think that really talks about the need for the virtual queue. I think also as you get into later fall and early winter, if we want to call it that, in Orlando, people don't want to get wet.
Yeah.
You know, the saying that they have on a lot of things, you will get wet, you may get soaked. I'm soaked. It was absolutely soaking. And they do have the ability to turn it down. But it's not the kind of thrill ride that I see people wanting to ride 2, 3, and 4 times in a day. And so that's why we'll see the virtual queue disappear on this attraction ultimately.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions about the virtual queue, because Tron was on the virtual queue. Has that remained on the virtual queue? Has that dropped off since this has added on?
Tron remains on the virtual queue. For listeners who don't totally follow what we're talking about with the virtual queue, as I said, that's the Ride Reservation Center. There are currently 3 options for virtual queue. One is in Epcot, so that's not going to impact you. That's still Guardians. And I mean, Guardians, we're talking about a year now with Guardians.
Yeah.
It opened.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah. Back. We're talking 2 years with Guardians.
Yeah.
I remembered you and I being there in May, but it was not just last year. It was the year before.
Yeah.
And then Tron is still on the virtual queue as one of the most popular rides. Tron did not open till March of 23. So again, that's 15 months. This is going to get off virtual queue sooner, but I'll go back to your original question now that I totally digressed on you.
That's okay.
You can get a Tron virtual queue and a Tiana's Bayou queue.
Okay.
You can be holding both at the same time.
All right. So the other question I have is, and you mentioned it kind of in the beginning when we were breaking down some virtual queue.
No pun intended.
That is where I'm going. One of the first rides that we saw this was Rise of the Resistance. Mm-hmm. And there have been moments in the history of the Rise of Resistance that it does break down.
And we all want to cry.
Correct. So similar experience here. I mean, we do have attractions that need to shut down for certain times, whether it's Figment leaking some hydraulic fluid or whether it's, this particular
protein spills, as they like to call it.
Correct.
Humanly caused by visitors.
Yeah. Or even this new adventure that we have. So did it break down? Did that change your time?
It's interesting that you give the comparison to Rise of the Resistance. Rise, when it came on, again, it came with virtual queue. It had its difficulties. It had a lot of them. It was one of the longest resets on a ride when it went down to get it back up and running. But the reality is, everybody understood. It was a brand new ride with the most complicated ride system Disney has ever built.
Correct.
People who were chatting with me on social media, and shockingly, again, I talked to people while standing in line, are all saying to me, why is this ride breaking down? It's the same ride. The vehicles didn't change. The track didn't change. Why is it breaking down? And the answer is simple. You have to think of it not as a ride, but use Disney's terminology. It's an attraction. That means that there might not be anything wrong with the track or the ride vehicle. But if Tiana stops talking in the one scene, or Louis stops playing his trumpet, that's what they're looking for. They don't want you to have that lesser experience. So, there's all these different audiomatronics, and that's where we're losing the ride.
Got it.
I will say that I had a rough day. I will make no bones about that. However, it was such a rough day that they actually changed how they did the virtual queue the next day, which I thought was very interesting.
Huh.
If you've done a virtual queue ride before, you know that you get a boarding group number, and along with that number, it gives you an estimated callback time.
Right.
It will not notify you of changes in the callback time. It will notify you when it's time to ride. I did check my callback time probably about every 25 to 35 minutes. And every time I checked it, it got later and later and later. They stopped giving most of the time during the day. You won't see a callback time. You'll see what number they're boarding. And that's really going to give you a big hint. The day that I rode, I watched, because on that virtual queue page, you see Tron and Tiana at the same time. And Tron was boarding up to group 135, and Tiana was boarding up to group 48.
Oof. That's not a favorable ratio.
They're not a perfect match.
No, yeah.
But they will ultimately be pretty close. So again, if you look at yours a couple of times during the day, remember, just because you got the virtual queue at 7, if the park doesn't open till 9, group 1 through 2 or 3 aren't being called till 9 a.m.
Yeah.
The ride doesn't start the minute you get the queue. So I suggest to people, you don't need to stock it the way that I stocked it. But check on it every hour and a half or so. See kind of how it's moving so that you know, do I want to ride and then lunch and then it should be my time? Do I not want to eat so close to the ride? You'll get an idea. So that really will tell you, because, again, there's no telling. If it moves smoothly, the next day, when I looked at noon on my day, they were boarding something like group 28. Mm-hmm. The next day at noon, they were boarding group 70. So the boarding group size didn't change.
Yeah, but an improvement in process, essentially.
We'll see the amount of time that it goes down become much less. However, we are entering summer thunderstorms, and it is not a ride that rides in the lightning.
Yeah.
So again, that could impact your virtual queue. They've been pretty decent if you arrive shortly after your boarding group time is over, as long as you've captured the boarding group info. What I will say is, because there is no standby line, when they get through all of the boarding groups, and once Genie is open, all of the Genie, the ride will close. So if they've had a great day like they did yesterday, 7 o'clock, the ride was done for the day. Even though the park wasn't closing till 10, they were done. So don't hold off and hold off and hold off, because you might really mess yourself up.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's talk about the ride itself, though, because you mentioned that the track hasn't changed and the ride vehicles haven't changed. But obviously, it's a totally rethemed attraction. The outside, we've seen pictures everywhere. I'm avoiding the videos of the inside because I'm a lunatic. But there are things about it that have changed. So let's talk about the ride itself.
And for those not avoiding, we have a couple of reels that we shared over on our Facebook and Instagram channel. I will be honest, I am not sharing a full video because my camera got soaked. So those of you that would like the full video, the last 2 minutes have a huge raindrop off the front of the video.
Got it.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
But they did a great job with this queue. The one comment that I'm hearing, and I can't tell people they're wrong because they're absolutely right. I have been asked by multiple people, this is obviously Tiana's Bayou set in New Orleans. If you've been to New Orleans, everybody wants to know, where in New Orleans do they have mountains? I guess they took a little bit of liberty there. There are no mountains in New Orleans.
No, there are not.
It is a great queue. It is all based on being in New Orleans, going to the restaurant that Tiana worked in. There's some really cute scenes, some adorable photo ops, with the food delivery truck and a table in the restaurant, and lots of fun posters for things occurring in the Bayou, both in the ride queue and in the queue as you leave to get out of the ride. So they did a great job with theming. Obviously, we see Tiana all over. She appears multiple times. Lewis is there. The trumpeters are there. One of the big things, and I haven't quite found this, but I know it must exist somewhere. There are 19 new audiomatronic characters, and they all have names. I don't know how we're going to find out the names, but that is what I've been told by Imagineering.
And 19 is a large number. I mean, that's a big
19
number.
Is a large number. I don't know what they're named, but they all have individual names. Lots of people who love the movie Princess and the Frog love Madame Odie. She makes several appearances. So just a really fun, if you've seen the movie, you really can follow the storyline, appreciate the characters. If you haven't seen the movie, they're still adorable characters.
So one of the things that obviously I look at is in the queue. You mentioned the queue is great. It's such a visual movie. What types of things are we seeing in the queue that are different from what the Splash Mountain queue was?
I would say, except for the bare wall, everything.
Oh wow, okay.
I mean, they kept obviously the walls, but every bit of art is new. I even love, as you're entering, I call it a house. I don't know what the rest of the world calls it, but that outside of the house is phenomenal. The artwork on all sides, I mean, it's full painting, top to bottom, all three sides. As I mentioned, they've got the Tiana's food delivery truck out front. Everything is themed, even starting way back before you go under that bridge as you're entering the bayou. All of those crates that they used to have kind of as streetmosphere as you were walking in, those are all still there, but rethemed with Tiana info on it. Again, in her office, in her restaurant, signs about Tiana's Palace and making your reservation. Lots of great artwork. And again, Disney's really changed a bit of their focus. And while the Imagineers, you've heard me talk about them and how incredible I think they are time and time again, they're working so hard to match the culture and to include cultures. We talked about that last week at Lighthouse Point. This is no different. The majority of the art in there, while not necessarily final drawings by, but concepted and drawn by artists from New Orleans.
That's cool.
They really work to bring all of that in. And we'll even talk about it in a minute when we talk about, things you can buy now that never existed before.
Well, I do want to talk about things you can buy now because obviously
we like to shop. We have to.
Well, it's not only that, it's because one of the most iconic things from my childhood that I remember buying, and we didn't buy a tremendous amount when we went to Disney World as a family, to be honest. We were that family that
they owed a lot of money on that boat that you broke, so the souvenirs were out of question.
I broke nothing. My sister broke it. Let's set the record straight. But one thing that we did purchase was a family photo as we went down the falls, right? So that's an iconic picture that everybody has posted of their traveling party at some point when they rode Splash Mountain. So talk to me about the photography on this ride. Has it changed?
I will admit I did not buy mine. You could not see me in it. I was in the front row. That is how large the splash was.
Okay.
They still, like in the past, you get off the ride, you walk a little bit, and they have that photo wall. You can buy an individual photo, or if you have PhotoPass, tap your room key or your Magic Band. It'll add it right on. So it's included instead of having to buy that 8x10 at $19.95.
Okay.
For the opening of the ride, while supplies last, I think they're going to be around for a while, though, based on the amount of supply they buy on some things. They're doing a special commemorative picture. And it comes in, one of those official cardboard kind of fold outs that hold the photo. And then it has some extras with it. So it comes with some additional pictures from the bayou. It has the recipe to make beignets.
Oh, that's cute.
All kinds of little special things, little touches from the bayou that you can bring home if you want to spend that $32.95 on the commemorative photo. They also have added some magic shots. They are at the entrance, and I'll clarify that by entrance, I mean, again, before you get under that bridge. When I looked at the announcement at first, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are they putting this in the line crew? In the line queue, we certainly don't need that holding it up.
Yeah.
But They do it right before great pictures that they're going to superimpose Tiana. And they are adding new photo lenses that are included in the My Disney Experience app. So lots of ways to welcome Tiana and create those memories.
What about a gift shop? Right? I mean, we used to end in what was a really small gift shop that was really mostly photos and then some drinks and a couple of things. What do we have in the way of a gift shop?
We have a gift shop coming.
Okay.
That's a real first for Disney. The gift shop is not open yet. That's the downside to some previews. I was able to peek in the window. So you're going to have to get back to me, those of you that ride in the next week or two when it hopefully opens. I think either just for decoration or truly as a photo spot, there's an awesome wall mural of the Bayou and Tiana and Louie that looks like a great photo spot. I am sure there will be no shortage of items that you can buy. You know, they're going to have a lot more than what you talked about. They've already announced a lot of items that they will have available in the Bayou. They're doing everything, obviously, from mugs to special caramel corn. They've got chocolate bars.
Man, if this company could only figure out a way to sell stuff, I mean, they could really take off.
One of the other really neat things that they're selling that goes right along with what we talked about earlier is they've made a deal with the Dookie Chase restaurant chain down in New Orleans, and they're selling his special spice collection. Huh. So you can get it in New Orleans or in Disney. Again, the shelves are going to be pretty packed. They've got Tiana ears. They've got spirit jerseys. They've got the new Loungefly bag. So, you know, a Christmas ornament. There is
plenty of options.
No shortage of items. But I couldn't buy any yet because it's not open.
The spice thing is interesting because it's another tie to the culture that you had mentioned before. So I think that's a fun little twist that we haven't really seen too much, I don't think, especially in Orlando. So
and again, exciting. I think it's that add-on that we're seeing that's really, I'll use the phrase endearing Disney to people, not that a lot of people need it, but not only are they hiring people in that local area to work with them so that they can be as authentic as possible, but by doing some of these purchases, they're able to continue to give back to these communities for just an indefinite amount of time.
That's really cool. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the program. Is there anything that you haven't shared with everybody that you think they need to know, or anything that you're hearing might be on the horizon? What else do we need to say about this newly opening attraction? Because it's open for previews, but not open to the public for like another week.
One of the things that's coming that we really haven't seen largely like we are with Tiana's is we know that people staying all over property head over to Port Orleans Riverside, again, New Orleans base.
Yep.
For their beignets. People take the bus all over property to go get beignets. And for the first time in forever, oh, sorry, wrong movie.
Nope.
Beignets will now be available in the Magic Kingdom. They're going to be adding them into 2 snack carts and a quick service restaurant. So they're really bringing all of the things of New Orleans throughout the park so that you can feel like you're on the Bayou.
See, and people thought we wouldn't have food in this show. Silly.
You know?
Of course, we end with beignets. Well, listen, as we said in the beginning of the show, when something new happens, you are there. I really appreciate it. I know that it was a significant travel experience over the last couple of days for you. You have more coming, but the chance to get down there and offer the first glimpse to some folks was important to you, was important to me. So thank you for doing it, and I hope your week is excellent.
Thank you. Have a great week.
That's a wrap this week on Let's Talk Diz. If anyone you know could benefit from this or any show, please share on your Facebook and Instagram for other Disney fans to enjoy. And don't forget to reach out to the folks at Easy Diz by Instant Impressions Travel Services for any Disney destination planning. Make it a great week, and as always, keep making memories.